Hey franchise, Coach Sean Liotta here, bringing you another edition of Inside the X and O's of professional indoor football. Today we're going to talk about the playing surface and how the playing surface in the indoor game differs vastly from what you're used to seeing with outdoor football or in the Canadian Football League. Whether it's the NFL, CFL, whatever it may be, this is a much different game. So with that said, let's take a look at how so. Our field, okay, just to give you an idea, and I'm not an artist, so, please excuse the drawing. I tried to draw this up as best as possible to give you a framework of how this thing works. But our field from end zone to end zone will be 50 yards long, okay? That differs from the American game of 100 yards long, okay? Now, the width of the field, so from sideline to sideline, that is only 28 yards wide. So basically, we're going to be operating on a field that is 50 by 28. All right, so you can see when we talk about the compressed space and the importance of teaching angles and how the speed of the game is so much different and different techniques for guys, particularly on the defensive side of the football, why that's so important, and understanding the angles and understanding, the dimensions of where the sidelines are, why all that is so important when we start to get into some scheme related material. Now, one interesting thing, you heard me say sidelines. Well, there are no sidelines in this game. The field is going to be surrounded with a 4-foot high wall with 3-inch padding. And you heard me right. I said a 4-foot high wall with 3-inch padding. Okay, so it's basically hockey boards with a little bit of padding in it. So this is a physical game. There is no running backs, get a good run and run out of bounds, or receivers catch a ball and go out of bounds. Guys are getting slammed into these walls at a violent rate. So this is, you talk about hard-hitting, action-packed. This is the game for it. Now, what typically will happen with these walls, okay, the end zones, it's typically a hockey configuration where there will be a rounding of the end zone. So let's talk about end zones first. All right, so typically they'll either be rounded off in the end zone, so this would be the goal line, okay, and that thing's going to be rounded off. But in some arenas, they will have the square configuration, okay, but most you will see have the round hockey rink configuration, because essentially it's football played inside of a hockey rink. All right, so that gives you an idea of the end zone. Now, with the end zone, from the goal line to the very back wall, you're going to be talking about 8 yards on average. Now, some are deeper. I know our end zones in Erie were a little bit deeper than 8 yards from the goal line to the back. Some are a little bit shorter, but as a general rule, you're going to be talking about 8 yards to the back, and then that changes. As this end zone concaves around, you can see the angles, okay, as to how that distance tightens up. So when we start to talk about strategy for when the ball is inside what we call the red zone, okay, as we get closer to the goal line, you can see how that strategy is going to change, because there's less room to work with. Okay, it's harder to get open, but there's also ways the offense can use these dimensions to their advantage, and I'll talk to you about that as well. That way, when you're diagramming plays, when you're thinking about what's going to go into the game plan in a particular situation, you know what you're talking about. Okay, so that's the end zone. So let's move on from the end zone. Let's talk about hash marks, okay, because every field's got to have hash marks. There are 2 sets of hash marks in the indoor game. The wide set of hash marks, okay, it's commonly called the college hash marks. Those will be 30 feet apart, okay? So those are going to be 30 feet from hash mark to hash mark, okay? There's also going to be a set of what's called the pro hash marks, which are going to be tighter, okay, inside of the college hash marks. Those are going to be 10 feet apart, okay? So just to give you an idea, because a lot of the offensive stuff and even defensive plays, when we start to get into that, we work off of what are commonly called landmarks, okay? A couple landmarks are the wide hash, okay, the college hash, the pro hash, and then we have numbers, okay? There's numbers on the field just like anywhere else. Now, what's interesting with our game, the 25 is midfield. There is no 50-yard line in the indoor game. So if you want seats at midfield, you want to look for that 25, okay? And because that's the place to be, and you want to be right along these walls, all right? Because this is unlike outdoor football. You know, you're not 300 yards away from the field of play. Here you can literally reach out and touch a player if you're in the first so many rows. Footballs are going to come into the stands. You're going to get to keep them. Players occasionally will come into the stands in this front row. You got to give them back. But, you know, as you can see, the action is going to be intense. You're going to be right up on it. It's going to be unlike anything you've ever seen. So really, these along this, we're talking about along the sidewalls, the place to be. Now, one other marking, this dictates with the kicking game. All right, this is important for you special teams gurus out there. You're going to have a mark at the 3-yard line. That's your standard spot for a PAT. And there's going to be goalposts. Now, you might say, how are you going to hang the goalposts from a hockey rink? Well, they hang from the ceiling. Actually, goalposts are suspended from the ceiling. They will hang 10 feet. So the goalpost is going to hang in the end zone there. It's going to be obviously shaped in that manner. All right, it is going to be 10 feet off the ground, and they're also going to be 10 feet wide. Okay, so it's a narrower goalpost. So it's a challenge for kickers out there. And in terms of landmarks, the 10 feet of the goalpost match up with the 10 feet of the pro hash. Okay, so we use that a lot of times for landmarks for our guys. If they look up and they can see that upright of the goalpost, they know they can work that to their landmark if we're telling them to get on the pro hash, whether it's running a route or whatever it may be, they can understand the landmark of all of that. But I hope this was very helpful for you in seeing the field setup. Now, the spotting of the ball, just so you understand that, because you might say, well, where's the ball get spotted if it's blown dead? So if someone gets contacted into the wall over here on the sideline, they're going to spot the ball actually right here on the wide college hash, okay? If the ball is tackled in between the college hash and the pro hash, they're going to spot it on the pro hash. If the ball is tackled in the middle of the field, they're going to spot it in the middle of the field. Now, when it comes time to the kicking game, and you're going to kick a field goal, you have a choice of 5 hash marks, 5 areas to put the football. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 hash marks, or the middle of the field. So that comes into some strategy, you know, and a lot of it is dictated off of what the kicker's preference is, you know, where your place kicker feels most comfortable with kicking the ball from. If there's occasionally in some arenas, there'll be obstructions that hang down, or signage, or scoreboards, or issues like that may dictate a kicker wanting to kick from a wider hash mark. But I hope that was very helpful for you. Kind of gives you just a general overview of the playing surface in professional indoor football.